I felt a calm. I felt a calm where I was able to say in my head, God, I'm ready for you to take me to do your will. And that changed me. And I felt a hand in my heart at that moment. For, I don't know, even know, do you know how long this whole journey, this little piece that changed my life, that hand I felt in my heart felt like a comfort to me. And then that's when I went into a coma.
You are about to hear the amazing story of Phil Abejar, his miraculous experience of nearly dying of COVID, giving his life to Jesus, then receiving miracles of his own life, a baby granddaughter from a previously infertile daughter, and sobriety for the first time in 45 years. Phil is very candid and brutally honest in the telling of his struggles with alcoholism and the challenges of a blended family. Finally, with much prayer and surrendering to the Lord, he has gained life, peace, and a purpose. This is the Miracle Hotline Podcast. I'm Dino Pandolfo. Everyone has experienced a miracle at some point in their life. Maybe you have prayed for a miracle, or maybe you are in desperate need of help. When a miracle happens, it is overwhelming, amazing, and you are so grateful for the gift God has given you. This podcast gives you the opportunity to share your miracle story so that others may believe and have hope, and it will encourage them to keep praying in difficult times. This show examines miracles. It includes first-person accounts, interviews, and investigations of the most credible and amazing miracle stories. You can tell us about your miracle by leaving a message at 412-446-0330 or visiting miraclehotline.com. We may play your message or interview you on the podcast. Subscribe to the Miracle Hotline Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any podcast app to automatically download the newest episodes. We have on the line Phil Abejar, and he has a miracle story, and I don't know much about it at all, other than it's about COVID-19, something about that. So, can you just tell us your miracle story, Phil, and I'll jump in if I have any questions.
Absolutely. The subject is, I'm an alcoholic, but I've been blessed by God because I've used up my 9 lives over my lifetime. I began drinking, using marijuana in 1976. After 45 years of addiction, God intervened last year during COVID. God appeared to me in a miracle baby. Her name is Liv, with her big blue glassy eyes, which reflect myself in a mirror image and God in a starburst lit image. This angel baby Liv allowed me to rededicate myself to Jesus and respect his mother Mary. My renewed faith allowed me the strength to divert my life away from alcohol abuse and indiscretions. I'd like to share.
So, who is the miracle baby Liv that you're talking about?
You'll hear as I talk a little bit about my life. Who this miracle baby? It's my 13th grandchild, who's now 3 months old. Okay. And he's a miracle. This one daughter, Kelly, has had several miscarriages. Okay. So in the life recap that I'll share, if you don't mind, this may take a couple of minutes.
Yeah, take your time.
Thank you. I moved to Washington, D.C. in 2010 after living almost my entire life in California, where I met my first wife, who I had 2 beautiful daughters with. Their names are Stephanie and Kelly. Kelly's the younger one. And thereafter, in 1997, after being divorced from my first wife, I met my second wife, Eileen, and her kids. She had 4 kids, 3 boys, and one girl. These kids were teenagers at the time, or just entering into teenage years. So you can imagine the challenges and difficulties with a blended family with 6 children. In 2013, after 3 years of helping build up a startup private equity energy investment business in Washington, D.C., I was able to retire. Upon my retirement, I began drinking excessively, because of so much time in my hands, but also because my brain, I probably have ADD. My brain starts to spin its wheels at 4 or 5 in the morning, and I can't
Yeah.
sleep. Just think.
So how old were you? You were married once, got divorced. Did you have any children in the first marriage?
Sure, I got married in 1980 to
Okay.
change my life for the better because I was abusing alcohol and drugs at the time, and
Okay.
she steered that, and we had 2 children. Their names are Stephanie and Kelly.
Okay. So you had an alcohol problem previously, even before or during your first marriage.
Yeah, since
Okay.
1976 for
Okay.
45 years.
Okay.
Yes,
And how old are you now?
I'm 61 this year.
Okay. So since you were what 15 years old or something?
16 years old.
16 you started drinking.
Yes,
And
and using
and marijuana. So you had a addiction problem all these years until
yeah. Well,
just this year?
well, no, okay. So just to recap and answer your question, it started in '76 with marijuana and alcohol,
Yeah.
and as college got into clubs and things that steered me away from education, but into partying and social
Yeah.
life, using drugs and alcohol, and got to a point where I used PCP.
Okay.
And so that one scared the death out of me.
Right.
But because of being steered in the right direction by my first wife, I ended up with a degree in
Okay.
business. And during that time in the investment field, which I was in, you got to use every ounce of your brain power. And
Right.
I knew I could not drink excessively, but I did
Yeah.
drink. Oh, every social event, and I could party like any weekend. I
Yeah.
thirsted more, but I was gifted with God's grace that I can differentiate between the two when I need to be switched on and when I'm off.
Okay.
And when I'm off, I can drink alcohol and use anything I needed to kind of slow down my brain.
Yeah.
That's sort of been whether it's real or not, that's how it always felt like.
So you were
It could
very
slow-
functional.
I'm a functional alcoholic.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right. Right.
we'll reveal that as I
Okay.
continue.
Okay.
So in Washington, D.C., I retired, and upon this retirement, I basically had a lot of time in my hands with a brain that was fully functional.
Mm-hmm.
And even with alcohol, it was fully functional until I blacked out. I had 2 modes, basically. I had drinking till there's no end because my tolerance level is so high to a point where I black out. Basically,
Yeah.
those 2. I never exploded to a point where I would be belligerent, except with my wife, because I had so many pent up things inside of me that
Yeah.
it would always come out when I got to a point of right before I would black out is when this would start, this belligerent behavior towards her. Never physical, just verbal. So basically,
So you were a functional alcoholic through your whole career, even into your second marriage, and then when you retired at 61, it got worse because you didn't have to be functional for your work. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. Let me just go back to Washington, D.C. to really enlighten you on this.
Okay.
As I'm a functional alcoholic, but certainly if you need all your brain power, you can't have any alcohol in you or drugs.
Okay.
About 6 months before I retired, I was working on an exit strategy because the business that we started, an energy practice in private equity investments, is a 16-hour-a-day job.
Mm-hmm.
We worked tails off. And right after I signed my contract to exit, basically the boss asked me, help build up the company to a point where I could ask him, and he respected me because I left California to go to Washington, D.C. And so I can help. There was 8 senior officers that were really the brain trust of this thing. And I was lucky enough to be one of them. Well, about 6 months before I retired, I had already signed a contract for my exit, how much I would be paid, etc., cash out my equity. And every morning from that day forward, I would have at least 2 coffees with Bailey's. And at every lunch, I would have at least 2 of alcohol because all my job was to train people, and I could train people without missing a beat because then it became a social event. They would learn, and I was good to go. And nothing was on my responsibility or my Nothing would affect my retirement at that point because I was already on the contract to leave.
Yeah.
So that was sort of how the reason I stayed that, because I can turn it off and turn it on with alcohol, and that's scary, but it's true.
Right.
So if I can continue, upon my retirement, I began drinking more and more and more and consistently, to a point where I would drive under the influence, and I hate to say this, including with grandchildren in the car, but still parent enough to drive safely.
Yeah.
I believe this because of my high tolerance level for alcohol, but more importantly, I was given the grace of God.
Yeah.
Although God given me plenty of warnings and wake-up calls during my lifetime of being in accidents and incidents, all of which I survived, and miraculously, I was always alone in the car.
Yeah.
And
so you had wrecked the car or had an incident before, but nothing bad. Nobody died. You didn't, it wasn't enough to stop. It was just you were able to deal with it.
Let me recap that for you.
Okay.
In 1978, after being out all night, and I'm not reading this, I'm just recapping it for you, this timeline. In 1978, and I'm highlighting this because they were serious, all of which could have killed me or others.
Yeah.
In 1978, after that started in 76, so I'd been 2 years into the drinking mode and drugs. I came home late night from clubbing, partying, and at 6 a.m. in the morning, I was supposed to be home to help my sister go to Long Beach from my home in Los Angeles area to help her move. As I got home without sleep and still with alcohol in me, I followed my sister, who was pissed off at me because I was late. I was supposed to be home earlier than that so we can go to my other sister's house by 6:30 or 7 in the morning. While we were driving the freeway in the first lane, I fell asleep in the car and rear-ended her. And the car, somehow both of us, I woke up, we pulled over, and I obviously, her damage in the back was in our Volkswagen Beetle I totaled or not, but the front was totaled.
Yeah.
And in 1979, while doing unexpectedly, PCP was laced into marijuana, and what he does is hallucinates. And so all night from maybe 12 midnight till 6 a.m. in the morning, I hid under a car, laying flat, feeling like I was being chased by police. That was where my head went.
Yeah.
And I was night until I came to. In 1979, I was driving up to Mammoth, this place.
So you were, in these years, you were like 18, 19, you were young then.
Yeah.
Is that what you're?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In 1979, I was driving up to Mammoth with a cousin of mine, and we were drinking heavily beers and scotch. And about halfway through the trip on the road, 395, the CHP caught me at 85 miles per hour. We kind of hid the cans and the bottles in the back with our jackets, and I forget what I did. I must have Coke in my breath. I drank Coke and I gargled so I can spit it out, so that when he came, he told me exactly these words: "Do you know you're going 85 miles per hour?" And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, officer. It's late. It's 2 a.m. in the morning. I didn't know my speed." It was sort of a speed trap of which I was going through. And he said, "Well, okay, you better be careful because there's more police ahead of you." And so he let me go. We got a ticket out, noticing that my breath was what it was.
When you were drinking and driving with your grandchildren in the car, what year was this and how old were you?
I would say in my 50s.
Okay.
Because that's when children kind of started.
And this is when you were getting to retirement in Washington, D.C. Is that right?
Yes, it was already when I was retired. Yes.
Okay.
Let me continue with, although God has given me plenty of warnings and wake-up calls during my lifetime of being in accidents and incidents, all of which I survived, and miraculously I was always alone. Mm-hmm. The 9 death accidents or incidents I've had were miracles of God because evidently He has a plan for me.
Yeah.
Though I've been praying for many years for Jesus to show me a sign in a dream of me involved in a mild accident with family in a car, or to show me my medical reports from tests that I take biannually to show that I have liver or kidney enzymes, elevated kidney and liver enzymes, such that would wake me up. I needed something tangible. I guess, Dino, is my point there. Nothing ever tangible, because I survived all these accidents and I always felt like I'm bulletproof.
Yeah.
And so I felt could stop me is if I have a dream showing me in an accident with other people, then I would know I better stop. Or if I see my doctor twice a year, which I specifically ask for liver and kidney enzyme tests, blood tests, it's always better than expected. So how can somebody like that stop drinking when they are bulletproof?
Yeah, you're getting away with it. There's no reason to stop.
There's no reason to stop. Unfortunately, as sad as this sounds, I cannot stop myself from my addiction. My wife can't stop me. My mother can't stop me. My daughters can't stop me, even with the threat of taking the grandchildren away. Or none of my friends could stop me.
Yeah, it's a very bad addiction. And you said you tried AA, and that didn't work either.
I tried AA over the years. The last one was a year and a half ago, before COVID. Yes,
yeah.
The last 3 incidents. Let me talk about 2 incidents that were. The last one, I'll go backwards, was a Tahoe. I was driving my Tahoe, going to get my haircut, and I'd already been drinking in the morning. And I say drinking, scotch and vodka. I was driving to the barber with an open beer can in my car by myself. It was not my fault, but as I was going through the green light, and usually when I go through a green light, I always look left and right before I go through. When I'm fully coherent, well, I've been drinking, so I just go through. I've got the green light. Well, I got T-boned. It flipped my car over and flipped me punches for about 5-10 seconds until 3 people got me out of the car. And as I was getting out of the car, they sent me on a curve, and wasn't a few more minutes that the police came. But in that interim, I was looking for my wallet in my car, but also trying to find a beer can that I could hide, because if I took a DUI at that moment, they would find alcohol more than my bloodstream. The year before, I had a Porsche Turbo, and I was going probably 80 miles per hour in a curve when I hit a bump in the road, which made the car basically go in 360 circles on the opposite side of the highway. I was facing the opposite cars, and there were cars driving by. Miraculously, I missed every single one of them missed me. My car was facing the opposite direction in the opposite side of the lane.
Oh gosh!
And, I had 4 little scotch bottles, and I'd already been drinking. I was headed to a party, and my wife was sick that night, so she couldn't come to the party, and I was wasted. And my first was, I hit somebody, by the way. I hit somebody on my side of the road going the same direction, and that caused me to the 360s on the other side of the lane. Yeah. And I had 4 bottles of these little scotch bottles where you can just take them quickly and in a hidden way. But I'd already been drinking. The first instinct I was alive. Let me throw out all these 4 bottles in my car and drink a can of Coke that I had and gargle with it, spit it out, so that if they did a DUI on me, or if I talked to them, I would sound coherent. And I could. Yeah. Snap out of it in a heartbeat once my adrenaline started pumping.
All right. So can you jump forward now and tell us about how you contracted COVID-19 and what happened?
We came back from Asia, and 3 days later, I started having symptoms, mild coughing and harder breathing. And so that was probably where I caught it. And I was with 5 other people who all were older than I am. My wife is 61 and a half, older than I am. And we were with 5 other people, age ranged from 75 to 86. Okay? And none of them caught. My wife, though, retired from the medical practice for 30 years, so maybe she built an immunity. That was the theory the doctors had. And so after 3 days, I had some mild coughing. It got worse, hard breathing worse. By the 4th day, my wife had to call 911 because basically my fever shot up to 102.7, and I couldn't breathe anymore. Yeah. So the ambulance took me in. I was in a day later. They tried to inject me with whatever, and a day later, I had a lung capacity of roughly 20%. Okay. So I be on a breathing machine. So they put me down, and so that was the moment. and they were discussing all of this, that I was in a gurney. They had to explain this. It was already an emergency situation, but they had to get my wife's consent. She had to agree to this. And what was my medical directives, right? Just in case I don't make it. Well, she was smart enough to have that, and no. And it's if my life would return from this COVID and this coma to where I would not be able to function as a person that could think of life as good, and she knows me well enough, I would not want to be in a wheelchair or, in the brain. No, if she had that, she would let me go.
Right.
That was what tested. So right before that time, all of this is going through my mind, scared, shaking like a leaf, shaking like convulsing. They had to strap my arms down on the gurney and hold me down because I was convulsing. And
because you couldn't breathe? Is that why?
No, I'm sorry. I was going to explain. So the convulsing was because at that moment I was thinking about all the things in the future that I was forward to. And it was now the end of that. And I was scared. That was it. God was ready, and I wasn't sure I was ready. Well, not with that kind of reaction, because most people who are of faith and are ready don't convulse. They go in peace.
So you were upset. You were really upset.
Upset about why God was doing this to me.
And the convulsing was just a physical reaction to the emotions you were having.
Yeah, but it wasn't angry. It wasn't upset. Yeah. It was a sad that was all coming over, a pure sadness about how I'm going. And I was just shaking. I would not experience this anymore. And that's when I started to pray. I don't know what the time period was. I started to pray hard. And then all of a sudden, I started feeling myself not convulsing, and then being sort of like floating. And then a flashback of my young days to today and everything in between flashed by before my eyes. And I said at the time to myself was, oh my God, I don't deserve any of this. Why has me blessed me with this? Imagine 2 wives, both wonderful people. I've got 6 beautiful kids, all married. I've got 13 grandkids. We've done all this thing in life. I retired early, and this retirement, I've already lived the life. And I've always said to people, I've got all these grandkids. I had a nice career, a beautiful life. I'm ready to go. And so at that point, when I said, I'm ready to go, God, let your will be done, I felt a calm. I felt a calm where I was able to say in my head, God, I'm ready for you to take me to do your will. And that changed me. And I felt a hand in my heart at that moment. I don't know, do you know how long this whole journey, this little piece that changed my life, that hand I felt in my heart felt like a comfort to me. And then that's when I went into a coma. That's not even the miracle part of the story, Gino.
Were you getting a drug to put you into a coma at that time?
I had maybe 20, everything, you can name it, tubes in me, everywhere. They were trying to sedate me there, and then they give me treatment for my lungs, which was collapsing. I had oxygen. So there's 20 things.
Wow! So you had a lot going on.
My wife took a picture of all of this, and it was a mess. It was just wires all over. Yeah. It was over. And so,
but it was a medically induced coma that they put you in at that point.
They did. It was a medically induced. When I say coma, it's a ventilator, but basically they're trying to keep me alive so they can do all the drugs they need to do. So maybe coma is the wrong word. Right. Because it was an
But you're just sedated a lot then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm on life. Yeah, basically.
Okay. And you're on life support.
If they turned it off, I'm not around. So that's why they had the medical directive.
I see.
Yeah,
wow.
They're going to turn it off. If something went sideways in my heart, it would be it. Right?
But you felt after you gave you told God that you accept His will, then you felt a hand on your heart.
Yes, a light touch, very light. I'm feeling it right now. I'm serious. It's a very light touch. I mean, it's hard to describe. It's not pressing on the heart. It's just a light touch over my skin, and it wasn't. It just felt like it was on my skin, and that's all it was.
Wow.
And right after sleep, I was out
And then
out for the
you
next.
felt peace, you stopped
Oh,
convulsing, and
oh,
then you're out. Okay.
they're out. And
Wow.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, in itself. I feel really good about the fact that in that moment, I felt ready to go. I
Yeah.
honestly did. I admitted that to God that I have been blessed with too much,
Yeah.
and I don't deserve all of this. And please take me, give the life to somebody else that may deserve it more. And so that was the sentiment I had. And whatever
Yeah.
happened, I survived it. The fourth day, they had to switch drugs because I was
Mhm.
blood clotting, and that's when my wife started sending out all the requests for prayers through the church. We were members of various churches, and all our
Yeah.
friends are very Catholic. So she sent and everybody started sending in prayers from
Yeah.
everywhere, all over the world. Wherever we've been with people and touched people's lives, whether it's Italy, Asia, and been in Philippines and the East Coast and Europe, I was getting prayers
So
from
everyone,
everywhere.
lots and lots of people were praying for you.
Yeah, through Facebook, even people we didn't know, because Eileen
Yeah.
went out on public to put this out, and oh my gosh, all the prayers from
Well, you
Facebook,
needed
and
it, right? You were
I needed
close to death here.
and after that, the change to disappear. Then after 4 or 5 more days, then I started getting back to at least getting out of the induced
Mhm.
coma. Then I was put in ICU for another 5 6 days, and then I was in sort of recovery mode at
Okay.
that point. Then I was released, and then I was in a more quarantine for 2 weeks in my own bedroom. My wife never entered; she'd leave me food in the front. And during that time, it was a time of peace where I prayed a lot.
Yeah.
After surviving all of this, I think I'll keep going, and if you don't mind,
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
story.
Hmm.
So the first day after I got back, I was quarantined, and I was very weak. I had a walker in my room. I could not walk around because
Wow.
legs atrophied because I was in bed for 3 weeks. So everything atrophied.
Oh my
It had to
gosh.
get physical therapy to learn how to use my muscles again. They basically went dead for, that the period of time. And so I had to get physical therapy. And then when I was good enough, they put me in a wheelchair, and I stayed in the wheelchair for a little bit. And we have a stair lift at my home for a mother who lives with me. And so I took that up, and then I took the wheelchair or stroller up to the quarantine room, and I was there for 14 days, which gave me a lot of time
Yeah.
for prayer, contemplation, to really ask the very important question of why the heck did he save me? Because I was ready.
Yeah.
And I always searched and asked for the answer of what is my purpose? What does he want from me? So time goes on, and the next day after I get home from my ICU and into my bedroom for quarantine, my daughter, second daughter, Kelly, the youngest one of my two daughters, came over, and she was downstairs. We have a foyer area upstairs, and she was in a living room sitting down, and because of I can't get close to her, right? I'm very contagious at that point in time.
Yeah.
So I had to put a lot of distance, and I had a hazmat suit on, and just to.
Oh gosh.
But she wouldn't come over because she was crying.
Yeah.
Her heart. Her husband and her just decided to divorce while I was in the hospital.
Oh
My heart
jeez.
so deep for her,
Yeah.
so deep, and because here's my daughter, who, remember, she has 5 siblings in this blended family, all who had at least 2 kids and wonderful husbands that are supportive and loving. And here she was, cannot have a kid and losing her husband.
Yeah.
And I cried. I'll come down and hug her, but I'm in the quarantine and I'm so weak, we couldn't. Let me share with you that miracle baby Liv was the baby of Kelly. And here's what happened. About 3-4 weeks after she moved in with us, she would go to her old apartment, and her husband was still staying there.
Yeah.
And they were already splitting everything and dividing everything and writing up the documents. They had the divorce papers ready to go. And I guess, unbeknownst to me, some of those visits were about trying to see if there's a way, because they do love each other. We knew, everybody knew
So
that.
your daughter Kelly and her husband were separated and maybe decided to get a divorce, and she has a child. Is that right?
No child.
So
I'm sorry.
So who's
No, hang
the
on.
baby belong to? The
There's
miracle
no baby.
baby.
Let me finish my story, Gino, and
Okay.
then you'll
Okay. All
understand.
right.
So, let me,
Because you did
I
say
guess,
they didn't have any children, right?
yeah, okay, remember she had miscarriages?
Okay. So they had tried to conceive, or she conceived but did not then have miscarriages.
Let me share with you,
Okay.
since 3 years ago, they tried to have one, she lost it. 2 years ago, they tried to have one, she lost it. Last year, she tried to have one and lost it.
Okay.
That was December 2019. She came over our house. We had a big gathering of family, maybe about 15 of us, and she wanted to announce something. We had no idea. Well, she announced prematurely that she was pregnant.
Oh.
Big celebration, you can imagine.
Yeah.
A week later, she had another doctor's appointment, and she had lost it.
Oh, wow.
And then it became a subject that was difficult to hurdle marriage, because she wanted to continue to try to have a baby because all her siblings had one, and that she's seen how loving they are. And the husband said, it will cost us $10,000 for in vitro every time, and many times you have to go to 10, 20 of them to get lucky,
Right.
and that's going to cost us tens of thousands of dollars, and I'm not having it.
Yeah.
I love children, doting to all the little my grandkids, right? His nephews and nieces.
So that was part of the conflict they were having.
Exactly.
That was part of the reason they were having problems in their marriage is because of that.
You got
that.
That's what this was the big problem.
That was the problem. I see.
A good couple. This was the piece that tore them apart. Nothing else. No third parties. Nothing like that.
Right.
No jealousy. This. So she came to our house and asked if she can live with us, because she's basically getting a divorce, and she would leave the apartment to Robbie because he's in the military and he can get his contract there continued, and they'll sort it out a lot. But we did know over the next several months that she was making conjugal visits, I guess, because lo and behold, a month, 2 months later, she came back and said, I think I'm pregnant. So,
wow.
And then all of a sudden things started getting smooth between her and her husband, because they didn't have to take vitro. It was just one of those conjugal visits, supposed to be working out the divorce. But, I guess there's hanky-panky along with trying to work out the
Well, that's good, right?
Well, for past 9 months, I prayed because she had gone through miscarriages over and over. My wife prayed and prayed and prayed. And this is the part about the miracle where I said to you, I would give up my life to see my daughter have a child that she can love and raise up and feel that unconditional love for someone. Only time you will ever have unconditional love is for your child. You can have conditional love for your wife or spouse or birth or boyfriend or whatever, right? But a child, unconditional. And it's you know what it's like. You've had 3 kids. So I pray that if she can get through this healthy and the baby healthy, God, please, I'm ready. Take my life. She, as you know, let me fast forward. December 29th, she had a baby. And then here we are, happy as a clam. She's healthy. She's breached. She's got hip problems because she was breached. So now she's got a brace for the next 6 months. That's okay. That's not a problem. It's the baby I speak of that was born from Kelly after being separated from her husband. And now, fast forward, that girl, Liv, Miracle Liv, is here with half of the grandkids. We have 13. There's 6 others. And so we're seeing all this transformation even as we're snowboarding. She was telling me all day today, Dad, it feels different when you have a child. It's like, I don't want to go deep runs anymore. I'm scared. She's so scared. She wants to be there to love her baby to grow up. And that's every parent's dream.
Yeah.
And so just on the part where my wish and my hope and my prayers came through, God gave it to me. Okay, so now what? Gino, I kept asking 3 months, 3 months. I can't. Okay, it's here. Everything's great. What else? Well, Lent came along, Of course, last Miracle Live is the root of the miracle for me. And that is, if you can wrap your head about my alcoholism, which is pretty severe. A fully functional alcoholic. I'm not proud of it, but I'll say it. I am a fully functional. It's either I'm good or I black out. I mean, that's scary.
Right.
Good or black out. That's a scary place to be, because then you don't know when that point is, and you can be driving and you black out. And I mentioned to you, I've got 9 lives. I've been in 9 of those. And so he spared me. Lent is a big part of the Catholic faith. And so, we gave up some things. And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't make it through the whole 40 days on my 2 things, 2 little things. And, I was out with a bunch of buddies playing golf, and, they decided to go to Mediterranean, and my favorite is kubida. And I was looking at this kubida. I gave up meat, sorry.
Yeah.
Just meat. Beef. I can eat pork. I can eat chicken. I can eat fish, but beef, because beef is my favorite. I'm looking at this kubida, which is my favorite Mediterranean. I broke down. So anyway, I'm a sinful person.
So what's a kubida? I don't know what that is.
It's ground beef, basically, with their sautéed whatever sauce they use in the Persian world. Yeah. So try it. Mediterranean.
I've never had
beef kubida. It's better than chicken kubida. To me personally, twice as good. But try it out. It's spectacular. You can find a nice.
So you gave up beef. You gave up beef for Lent.
I gave a beef for Lent, and I gave up pornography during Lent, and I broke down. And so, here we are. Get through Easter Sunday, and before Easter Sunday, I'm going to slow down in my description of this, because this is, to me, very personal, but something that is easy to share, because this is the stuff that I feel people long for. But until you're ready to listen and do what he says, will you really have conversion of the heart?
Yeah.
It's that. And so, a week before Easter, Kelly, my daughter, found that she had to go back to work on a part-time basis, meaning she had to work from home, and then would get a week off, but work 2 weeks. So remember, she was on maternity leave for 3 months, and then had to go back in like beginning of April, and nobody was around. The mother, my former wife, first wife, she was working or something. So Kelly asked me to help her. So I babysat for 3 days. In that 3 days, one of the days, it was at the beginning, I was babysitting her. I was walking around in her backyard, and I was gazing into her eyes. And this kid, Liv, when she looks at you, she's got, okay, let me send a picture of you, and you'll understand what I'm talking about and why I saw in this eyes. Again, I'm on the phone. I've got my 2 twins here.
Yeah. She's got big blue eyes.
Just say hi to Gino, Mr. Gino.
Hi, Mr. Gino.
Okay, tell them your names one at a time.
I'm Casey.
One at a time.
I'm Cooper.
Okay. Do you love your umbrella?
Yeah.
And everybody?
Yeah.
All right.
And you, Papa.
I love you too. I love you more. Okay.
And you, Miss.
So Gino, do me a favor. Open up the picture, so you're just looking at one of the eyes. Any one of them. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so the eye is as big as the camera. Please.
Yeah.
You see her pupil? And this was with a backlit of the forest behind me. You see her pupil. What do you see around that pupil? It's a starburst.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's light, it's sun, it's the clouds. You know what I started seeing there? Initially, Jesus. Oh my gosh, I said, I'm seeing Jesus, but that was wrong. That can't be Jesus. I said, and then I realized it's an angel of Jesus.
Wow.
So I started my connection to her, my miracle live angel, started to click.
So this granddaughter of yours, just to recap, you had COVID, you were hospitalized, you almost died, you prayed to God you didn't pray to God to live, you just prayed to God to have his will be done, and he allowed you to survive. And you were very upset at first that you were going to miss your grandchildren. You have all these grandchildren and everything, but he allowed you to survive.
Gino, real quick, I was ready to die. I said, I want to be with you. That was my feeling. Yeah.
But you survived. And then you were praying while you were recovering at home, and your daughter was staying with you at the time, and she was going through this divorce. But then at the same time, you were home, she's staying with you a little bit, going back and meeting with her husband and working things out with him, having a conjugal visit. Then she became pregnant and this was after 3 miscarriages.
She became pregnant later, 8 months later in December. So this was around April.
And
May.
you had so while you were recovering, so that she was there, and then she became pregnant, and then 9 months later, she has the baby.
Yes.
And this is the baby that you prayed for, and while you were praying, while she was there, that she got back to her husband, she would have the baby, and this is why it's your miracle baby, because it's while you had an experience with God there, and you had prayed, and now He had done something for you and for your daughter and for her husband. He gave you this baby.
May I finish the story, which will really get to the miracle for me?
Okay. I'm just recapping to just make sure that I have all the details. But yeah, so that's right? Where we are. Okay. And now you're watching this same baby live. What is it short for? Olivia or?
No, it's Liv, and
so her name literally is Liv without the E.
Yes, without the E.
So that's a really neat name. It's like Liv, like this baby lived. And when three others before her did not.
I don't know how they picked out the name. I should ask them that question.
It's amazing. It's a really neat name. So now you're this is all these months later, and the baby is how old now when you're watching
3
her?
months.
3 months old.
3.5 months.
And you're babysitting.
I sent that picture to you to look and open up her eyes for you to see what I see in her eyes. It's not about this child. Every child is beautiful. But her eyes, not only are they what you see, but when she's lying down wherever, she always looks to everybody. And if you're close enough, she looks dead straight into your eyes.
Yeah.
Doesn't blink. In her eyes, I saw something special. And the starburst wasn't as obvious as what I said to you today. And then it wasn't about the starburst. It was, and looking into her eyes is deep. All I knew was she had these eyes that were glassy, and if I looked into them, I would see my reflection if I was outside. And then not only that, I started to feel Jesus' presence in her and in me. And it reignited my faith the week before Easter.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought I couldn't make the Holy Thursday, let alone Friday, which is, as you know, I'm not going to describe. Those are special masses. Yeah. We go 2-3 hours. And I thought I was going to miss it because I was babysitting, but somehow things worked out. I was able to lead my Liv to her mother, and so I was able to go all these services, and it worked out. So then came Sunday, Easter Sunday. That Sunday,
and this is just a few weeks ago, like this year.
April. Oh, wait, yes.
This is 2021 that this happened.
Yeah,
is that right? Okay.
And so end of March is when I started babysitting Liv for 3 days. And that's when I was captivated by her eyes. Every night I went to bed, I'd always want to stare at her eyes. And I started during those 3 days, Gino, I was praying a lot.
Yeah.
Praying and asking for forgiveness for all my wrongdoings. And I could ease everything. And obviously I could talk to her. And she wouldn't cry. She never cries. She just looks at me with those eyes. It's like my heart bleeds. And I start sort of like talking to her like she can hear me, and sometimes I'm crying like a baby to her. Yeah. And talking to Jesus is the feeling I had. Yeah. I didn't know it at the time. This was like, oh my God, it's a revelation. It was nothing like that.
Yeah.
These things kind of take me. I think I'm not the brightest person, but I'm pretty good at putting pieces together. And this one was different. It was like something was compelling me to always talk to her. And, my daughter is a Christian Catholic, but she's not practicing. There was another thing that came up here, and I'll say that is the last thing, because that's my God that came from God is what I'm going to tell you, the punchline. Well, so 3 days, a week before Easter, I'm talking to her all day. I'm crying, and I was so sad to leave her. Then I had to go to church doing different things, and then I think my ex-wife took over for a couple of days. So Easter came. You can imagine how my heart was just, oh my gosh, just always pumping. Yeah. It's just full of faith, but it's not done. And at that Mass, I remember 7 a.m. Mass is where we wanted to go. We're very early. And the reason is my wife and I were celebrating my 60th birthday party from a year ago, which we had planned a Napa trip.
Yeah.
And so obviously I was in the hospital for my 60th and could barely walk or get
because that was COVID. Over. That was COVID then, that you had COVID a year ago.
They carried me. 3 people carried me to the window because my family came to the bottom of the hospital window where I was at, and although it was shaded, they can still see me as hard as they can, and they were videotaping me, and I looked like, they said, 80 to 90 years old. I had beard, I had white hair, a scruffy, I was thin, I'd lost 25, 30 pounds, and I could barely walk to the window because of the act.
So you spent your 60th birthday in the hospital.
Yes. And so a year later, our plan was to spend a week in Napa and San Francisco. And so Sunday we had to leave early for this trip. And so I'm praying and still not connecting the dots. I hate to say it that way, but I'm still not connecting the dots. It was a few days before our trip that I had another babysitting duties. And, I'm always seeing Jesus. That Easter Sunday, I was crying a lot during the whole service almost. Just, I don't know what it was. Just something came over me. The music comes on, I'm crying.
Yeah.
Something is said, homily, and, the gospel, and I'm crying. Whatever it is, I'm crying. I had, my wife just kept looking at me. It's like, what's wrong? It's like, and it's a celebration, right?
Yeah.
Which it is. But I just cried during the whole time. But 3 days before that time, and I was going to not see her for another 2 weeks because we were going to go away for a week, and then we were going to go through all the services that Good Friday. That last day, I was supposed to get my Moderna second shot, and so that was important. And I had to leave her, and I was just so sad. It was my last time to put her down for another couple of weeks because it's not just loving this grandchild. I have 12 of them. I've loved every single one of them.
Yeah.
But think about this one. And so that hour before I left for my second vaccination, my daughter's calling me because I was upstairs in her room. I had taken Liv around, I think, 2 o'clock, 2:30, and I was going to put her down. I know the routine. I've done this lots of times, so she trusts me. But this time, I was upstairs. The lights were off, except the window was a little pulled open, so there's a kind of a beam of light, so I can see changing her diapers and all that good stuff. But the beam was like just, I'd say about a quarter of width, all the way down to her, so I can see her. And so my daughter kept calling me, texting me, and I had my phone next to me, and she goes, "Dad, leave her down, put her down already. You got to get to your appointment." And I said, "I need 10 more minutes. So I'm changing her. I got all that done. She's ready to go. And she was already strapped in her, what do you call this? That you wrap over their body so the arms can't move.
Oh, yeah.
I forget what that. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, swaddling or whatever.
Swaddle. It's a swaddle.
Yeah.
And usually, as soon as you put her in a swaddle, remember she's a baby, right? She won't stay in there more than a few minutes until you carry her. You cannot leave her on the bed with a swaddle, lying there. She never cried that hour in a swaddle while I was talking to her. And so I'm talking to her about Jesus and confessions and all that, and I'm crying. This is nutcase me. No, and nobody. I wouldn't now. I told my daughter, no, give me 10 more minutes. Don't come up. I got this. And, then I'm talking to Liv. And so a few minutes later, I started asking her, okay, so now what? What not? I was saying Jesus at the time. I said, Jesus, you've put me in 9 life-threatening accidents by myself. You've shown me that. And I walked away from every single one of them. I asked you in my prayers for the last many, many years, and especially show me some signs such that I could have a dream that I'm in an accident and 2 kids are there or my wife is there. And then I can say, forget it, I'm not going to drink and drive anymore. Oh, please have my doctor do these tests twice a year. Have one of them show up with an elevated enzyme, a liver enzyme, or kidney. So I know these checkpoints would then, I know enough about the medical field, but if they do, then lo and behold, I said, swore to myself, I will quit drinking if I see a vision of this or the doctor tells me. Because my wife can't tell me to quit, my mother can't tell me to quit, my daughters who now tell me that if you ever drunk and drive, you'll never see your kids again.
Right.
And anybody else, friends, good friends, family friends, Christian families, All of them have all know about my
Yeah.
alcoholism, but God bless their souls. Nobody has really confronted me. Because they know that I'm a functional and more than them. I'll have 10 drinks, they'll have one. They'll be buzzed. I won't be. That I can
Right.
guarantee you.
Right.
Until I start mixing all this stuff together, then you'll hit me hard if I, you know what I'm saying? Scotches and some beer, some marijuana. Oh yeah, some
Yeah.
gummies. And so they know that already. They know they hate it. My wife hates it. We've been almost through divorces with this, and we've stayed together. So in that time that I was still with Liv, it was a Wednesday night before my Moderna shot. I continued to pray, and I said, Liv, Jesus, please show me something, a sign. And I can remember this prayer, and you know this. You recall Saul persecuted all the Christians at the time, and
Yeah.
was blinded by God, and for days he was blind until he repented and was talked to by the other brethren of the disciples to promise God and them that he would not persecute. And he got baptized.
Yeah.
And from that day on, do you know Saul probably evangelized the most out of any Christian? He went from place to place to place unharmed, been threatened many times. So I said, can I see a little sign like that? Like, you don't have to blind me too much. And I was praying for a little, blind me, do something, right?
Right.
To complete this journey. And so I had this kind of epiphany of Jesus telling me, go look out the window in the sun and the blue skies. And so I walked to the window, again, where the beam was coming from, this quarter-sized beam to her. And I looked out, and of course, it's bright and it's beautiful. Looking out, and I say to myself, and I hate this when I do this, when I talk to Jesus, like I'm daring God or Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, now what? I'm here, I'm looking, now what? And then, so I felt this compunction to close the window, so it'll be dark, because I'm supposed to be putting her down to bed, right?
Yeah.
My daughter's going to my case. So she doesn't like to have her more than 15, 20 minutes carried and sung to and all that. So I was already 30 minutes. So I go back to Liv, and she's already in a swaddle. She's ready to go down, and she's just looking at me the whole time. Looking at me. Now, that was before I looked out the window.
Yeah.
She was looking at me, staring at me. Then I look out the window, and when I turn back and close the window again, it's dark. Right? Because my eyes can't adjust that quick,
right.
And it's dark. And I kind of feel my way back to her bed where she was lying, and I'm looking at her, and she's dark. I can't see her. And I was just like, what's going on? I didn't connect the dots yet, right? I'm looking for her, and after a few seconds, it started getting lighter, maybe like black or then gray, and all of a sudden, shaded white. I couldn't still see her. It's just white, like a cloud over her. And then after a few more seconds, it started to focus. And the first thing I focused on after it cleared up was her eyes.
Oh.
So I'm following the sunlight to her forehead and literally lighting up her eyes. So I forget which eye it was. I'm staring at it. And the sun was directly in her pupil, and the starbursts appeared around the pupil. And so I was looking at it. What you see in that picture was more pronounced.
Yeah.
It was like heaven to me. That picture I sent you, which was like the sky, that was kind of what I looked at when I looked at the window. But when I went to her, it was just a white. A white around her eyes and her pupils and the starbursts. And I'm converted because of Jesus, not necessarily because of God. I had never had a connection to our God. And as Jesus' prayer says, even when Jesus prays, his prayer is, Our Father, who art in heaven. He's not God. Jesus is not God, right? He's the Messiah, but not God. Right. Well, I found God for the first time in my life. And lo and behold, I heard things about what I need to do. My journey. One, how can I evangelize if I'm drinking like I do? Well, first, so he gave me this 3-step rule. Gino. You're going to love this. And nothing else works. I can't do the 12-step program. I blast through that, and I go back after 3 months, okay?
Yeah.
You know, you stand up, and I don't know if you've ever been to one of these things, you know, first thing, stand up. So, hi, my name is Phil Abejar. I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did that in my mid-30s and my 20s, and I did it a year and a half.
It didn't work for you.
Didn't work. Nothing works, Gino. Trust me on that one.
Yeah.
But if I am to take faith on and to evangelize, and at least, you know, evangelize, I'm not going to go out there door to door. Please don't I'm not going to go ride a bike and get a white shirt and go door to door.
No, but you're, you know, just with your experience, your story, you can.
Yeah,
you can relate to people. Yeah.
You're my friend. Your story. If I can help you with my story, raising our kids, lo and behold, and all throughout journey, and we've had 4 almost divorces. I told you, anything I can help you after this call, you can call me anytime. And I just lend me here. I don't want any confidentialities. You don't have to share anything with, unless it might impact the story and what you're sorting out and just going through. It's important, because here's the last piece of this. So how can I do all of this? Well, I'm drunk.
Yeah.
I'd be a fool. Can you imagine a drunk person in a Bible study group? Oh, you know, Jesus, right? How do you do that? Well, that was my first thing. My 3-step program is really easy. He gave it to me. The first step, never drink alone. I used to drink alone all the time. Yeah. I'd had it in my car. I told you about little bottles stuck everywhere. I had to throw them out, and police were coming. Otherwise, I'd have a DUI. Second thing is never drink more in a social setting the lowest common denominator or drinker, meaning if there's 2-3 guys, just one guy's really checking out, not the guy that's not drinking, I won't be him, but the guy that's drinking the least of all there, that's who I can never have more than. Okay. So it's just a rule, but I can do better. This trip for this last 5 days, I barely drank a sip from my wife's wine. My son, it drinks like 2-3 scotches a night. I had a sip of his. At one time we had cigars. Yeah. I had one with him. It's importance.
Right.
And I think I mentioned to you why my brain kind of travels fast and at work and babysitting. It's just whatever it is.
Right.
And
what's the third step?
The third step is never initiate drinking. It's not like, oh, honey, can you have wine so I can have a glass of wine? Never.
Right.
They must be drinking, and then I'll have a drink. Or they may say, hey,
so this all came to you when you had this experience of looking into your granddaughter's eyes that night when you were putting her down to bed?
I'm still looking at her eyes. It took me an hour to put her down because we were talking.
Right.
My daughter kept 5 minutes.
Well, I know how that is. You're walking with the baby, and then you try putting her down, and then she cries a little bit. You got to pick her up. You got to, that it can take a long time. Yeah.
Well, because she said, I'm going to miss my Moderna appointment. This is my second shot. So she kept texting me every 5 minutes. She was annoying because I said, no, this is important. I need this. And so I had to talk to Jesus, to God at that time, and then text her, back and forth. She kept bothering me. I was pissed off. Stop, get away from here. But, it's okay. That's right? But I was getting my messages like, okay, he would give me the 2 out of 3, and then she'd text me. Oh my God, okay, let me text her back. What's the third? God, what's the third? So I finally get the third, and oh my God, okay, now what? So
that's when you got that. So that has been working. This was around Easter, like the day or after Easter that this happened.
Hang on a second. Let me put a timeline on this. No, it was the Wednesday before Easter is when I finally found God. So
when this experience happened with your granddaughter, this is when this happened before Easter, Wednesday before Easter.
Okay, so they're just on the dates. So April 4th was Easter, and I was babysitting her on March 31st.
Okay. Yeah. And this has been working. This has been almost a month. And you have not been drinking, or you've been drinking in moderation,
based on the rules he gave me. Now, I'll be candid with you.
And these are rules that God gave you.
Okay, you're going to make me sound crazy, but
no. This is a miracle show. If you say God gave you these rules, that's what I want to know. Do you feel that God gave you these rules to help you? You're with your addiction.
Yes, and you know how some people, the majority of people, the secular world thinks about people who are talked to by God, they're crazy. So please don't announce that I'm crazy, because
no. I don't think so. This is what this podcast is about. It's about miracles, and we all have them. You know, we do. We all have miracles happen, and
I wish everybody did.
I believe
not
you.
Everybody.
I believe you.
Yeah, not everybody. I've been looking for this all my life, because you have to listen.
Yeah.
Something sometimes happens to people, and they finally listen. And I finally listened. And that's what transformed me.
Wow.
And it was talking to me and told me exactly how I need to do it.
Yeah.
I had no idea. It came to me through him. And so any good journey I go through, whatever in life, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my mother, even as I'm driving, I tell you, the inhibitions, if you're driving, I know I'm a functional alcoholic, but I'll tell you what, my patience runs dry quick when I am imbibing. Yeah. Absolutely. With my wife, starting with my wife. So everything is humming in terms of what I'm doing, Gino, and I'm still working on the issues with my wife that go back deep, 25. So because of my alcoholism, which her kind heart, she goes to pray the church almost every other day, and I know I don't ask her, but I know she's praying for.
Yeah,
she's been asking forever. She knows my drinking it was sort of bad from the time I met her, but of course she only knows bad because I never do it in front of her. I do it outside of her, friends, golfing, or social at work. And up through 2013, I would say, because I had to keep my shit together.
Right,
it
for
was
your job.
During the job, but at night, I can go party with anybody. And in the morning, I'm up, good to go on the job, until I retired.
Until you retired, and it got worse because you had time. You had time on your hands.
And I had to slow my brain down. Yeah. Because it calms me. It slows down my brain so I can chill out and not have it moving. Because I can't put all the pieces together when you drop.
Wow,
right? But
it's an amazing series of miracles that brought you to this point, and it sounds like you're at peace, that you can maintain this system that God gave you, and it's since it's from God, you're not going to, you're less likely to not do it if you believe it's from God. You're not going to, outdrink anybody or drink alone, which seems to be the biggest problem. So
yes,
that's wonderful.
So can I tell you the last sentence?
Yeah.
Why this all now comes together?
Yeah.
A week ago, I was babysitting Liv, and my daughter, I guess during her break time, we're talking to Chen. She didn't have a lot to do that day, and then she says to me, "This is Kelly, Dad. You want to hear something really funny?" My husband, Robbie, asked Kelly, "Are we going to have Liv baptized?" Oh my God, my heart bled. Oh my God, what a turn of events.
Yeah.
And what a miracle. It's even going to convert, because this is the one couple that I think is closest to really taking on faith.
Yeah.
And I'm working on it. It's very subtle. You don't want to offend anybody.
Right,
it's a strong world against this.
They have to decide for themselves. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. That is so wonderful. Yeah. That is a great miracle story. I love it. It's and what's interesting is you're 61 now. I mean, this journey has taken a long time, from your whole life, this journey. And to have such a, conversion, not a conversion, but you've always tried, you've always been doing your best, but to have all of these things come together and for the best, even though it was through a bad, through COVID and almost dying, but, this all came together and you're still, you're living and it's really neat that you got to just keep going and God will come through eventually, right?
Let me add one last thing, Gino, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, we have a lot of kids, we have a lot of grandkids, and it's very expensive. We try to treat them all equal. We give them nice things, and we help them out with colleges and homes and all of that. And so, in my, story, you've heard me say many times, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I am to go. I am. Even to this day, I can tell you, I'm ready to go. So just to put a bow on this, he's not ready to take me because he expects more of me. And as I was praying, still at the same time, we'd live on March 31st, I got to hearing him talk about, he's not ready for me. And my journey is, because I am ready. I can go next year. I can go. I'm good. I live is here. I am a happy camper. If I got hit by a car or hit by a meteor, I'm good.
Yeah, you've had a good life.
But you know what he told me? He expects me, and this solves a lot of my dilemma about how long am I going to live, issues with Social Security, my pension, my investment strategies. It kind of gives me this perspective. And the perspective is, Phil, you have done good to many. You have done good for your own family. Do not ever worry about your meal the next day.
Yeah.
You will live 30 to 40 more years. And because your journey will allow you to continue to share your stories with many people.
Yeah.
And that's what I guess I've been praying for my purpose. And that's it.
Yeah.
And I've purpose since 2013 when I retired, because I kept praying. I've never missed a mass service and any Sunday anywhere in the world, because we always go, and I always pray, what is my purpose?
Yeah.
And since 2000, it's never been answered, because I work 16 hours a day. Now what do? I can't travel. I can't go that many times. I can't babysit. So he gave me my purpose, and I have my answer just now.
Wow, but you have such a rich experience, and yeah, through your experience, you can help a lot of people through many different things. I think so,
including Gino. If you ever need a friend to talk to about your situation,
I know you have a lot. You have a lot of issues that I have experienced. So you're a great person to talk to. Yeah,
the vision of where my kids are at today. We love them all.
Yeah,
and we love them all. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Phil. This is a wonderful story, and I'm so glad everything worked out with God's grace and all of your prayers. It's wonderful. So thank you so much. If you have a miracle story, call in and leave a message 412-446-0330 or visit miraclehotline.com. If you truly believe in your heart that you have experienced a miracle, we want to hear from you. If your story is compelling enough, we will play it on the podcast, and we may even interview you. Subscribe to the Miracle Hotline podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any podcast app to automatically download the newest episodes. The Miracle Hotline podcast is sponsored by Imagine Audio and Media, for all of your audio and video production, voiceovers, and CD and DVD duplication. Visit ImagineAudiomedia.com. This has been the Miracle Hotline Podcast. My name is Dino Pandolfo. Please give us a call at 412-446-0330 with your miracle story, or visit miraclehotline.com. Thanks for listening, and please call in.